What's up, interpreters? This is Ted Johnson. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at Timucuan Ecological and Historic Preserve here in Jacksonville, Florida.
What is up, interpreters? I am Paul Caputo, your Executive Director with NAI.
What's up, interpreters? This is Song. I'm your Events and Conference Manager with NAI. Hey, Ted, it is so good to have you on this podcast. It's been a minute. I had the privilege of meeting you twice in person. Last time, Paul was with me, and we were in St. Augustine in Jacksonville area doing a site inspection for our upcoming conference there. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Indeed, same here. And just great to have this opportunity. So thank you so much for having me here on the podcast.
I feel like the elephant in the room here is that we're doing this for a second time. And Ted, you were very gracious to come back and do this again after Lord knows what happened to the first recording that we did, but it is long gone. It's deep in the ephemera somewhere. So we will look to recreate the magic that we had in that first conversation and talking about all the great work that you do at Timucuan.
Yeah, and take two, I would say, is always the best, especially in this case.
A very basic thing. You and I have also met twice again. Or you and I met when Song and I were in Florida for the site visit. And the first time I met you, you were presenting at the conference of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, a really fascinating session about the Gullah Geechee community in Florida and 3 other states. The Gullah Geechee corridor extends for 4 states there. So I would like to start off with that conversation because you'll be involved with our national conference in St. Augustine. And we will have Griffin Lotson as one of our speakers during a plenary session. Can you talk about the work that you do with the Gullah Geechee community and the significance of that community in the state of Florida?
Well, sure. And the Gullah Geechee community as a greater community, as you've said, extends throughout a national heritage area that has been established from North Carolina down to Northeast Florida. Been able to trace at this point, and this is really areas where now descendants of individuals who were enslaved on plantations, along the southeast Atlantic coast there, some of the barrier islands, and then again along the coastline. And then post-emancipation, after the end of the Civil War, many of these individuals were then looking for opportunities to earn a living. So many of them migrated. So the corridor itself, the National Heritage Area, extends about 20 to 30 miles inland, again, along that coast. So it's been a great pleasure and privilege for many of the National Park Service sites that are within that corridor to work very closely with the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Commission, Congressional Commission, who works with individuals and groups all throughout the corridor, from a grassroots level to preserve and promote this unique culture. And it is indeed so unique because of the remote locations of those plantations where the individuals, the ancestors, were enslaved. Many of the individuals that were enslaved were able to maintain and continue to practice some of their African-based traditions. So they continue to celebrate that culture.
So Ted, you work at the Timucuan National Park, which houses quite a bit of stuff within there, right? You've got the Fort Caroline area. Is that a historic site, Fort Caroline?
Yes, it is. It's one actually of 2 main, I'll say, cultural sites that we protect and we interpret. Fort Caroline is a French memorial. It's a national memorial where early settlers, these are the first European contact related settlers, in the area. So 16th century, so 1500s. And of course, they interacted with not only the indigenous groups that were here, but also the Spanish. So, trying to control territory and survive. And then the other main site that we also protect and interpret is Kingsley Plantation. So it is an antebellum era plantation, as you can imagine, with some very interesting and very challenging stories to share about those that were enslaved. We try to really concentrate mostly and focus on the lives and the experiences of those that were enslaved there and their resilience.
So how is it difficult to interpret kind of a historical area and sites and also kind of just the natural area? How do you do that with the field trips and with
Yeah,
visitors?
yeah, it's a great question, and the more that comes up quite often. But the more we think through it when we're discussing that with folks, it's not. You might think it might be difficult, but it's really not, because if you really consider, the histories of all those peoples that existed here throughout history, they had to interact with and survive, with the land, with the natural environment. So it's really interesting how much, how closely those histories intertwine. So the changes that happen naturally, adjustments that the various cultures had to make to continue to survive. So it's actually quite easy and it's kind of natural to be able to interpret both histories together.
One of the places where that natural and cultural history really comes together is a specific site at Timucuan, which is American Beach. It's a really difficult history, but an important story to tell, and it's one that I'm sure we'll be talking about during the conference at St. Augustine. Can you elaborate on the significance of American Beach and why that site in particular is featured at Timucuan?
Well, yes, that's actually there's some property there in American Beach. That's in a county. We're in Duval County, but that's in a county north of Duval. And Timucuan was able to secure some property there later in its existence. And what we are able to protect is a natural dune system. But American Beach has a history of being one of the only areas locally where those of African descent could recreate, enjoy themselves at the beach in a kind of resort area without any kind of challenges during the Jim Crow era, because the property was owned by African Americans. So it was secured in the 1930s. So this really then flourished and became a great resort. Folks from all over the country would come to American Beach to recreate, and there eventually were all kinds of stores, black-owned businesses. There were all kinds of restaurants. There was a juke joint kind of a location, or a jazz club. It was the Rendezvous. So it was incredibly popular, really, until to 1964, the Civil Rights Act was signed, and with many other black beaches that developed during the Jim Crow era, when the rulings then changed, and those of African descent then were able to populate other beaches. So then they would then populate beaches that were closer in proximity to most of them. So that affected what happened as far as American Beach is concerned. But the last thing I'll say about that is that it's also connected because the founders of that were also connected family-wise to descendants of the Kingsleys who owned Kingsley Plantation. So that really ties in with the themes of interpretation that we have at Timucuan.
So tell us about the name Timucuan. That is named after the Timucua people who were originally in the northern Florida area. Is that correct?
Right, and that's kind of based on the language that was spoken. Mukambo is also a term to utilize to identify that tribal group, and so there are various pronunciations, Timucuan or Timucuan, you also hear as well. So this was, with the park, we say that we interpret, over, at least 6 to 10,000 years of history. So that group was, of indigenous tribal group was the earliest that we can document. And so then what's really interesting about the park is then not only looking at their connections with the land, but then how other groups, European groups, started to come in and interactions that they had that ended up in most cases to be quite challenging. And you see that in other locations as well. So expansion, of territory and control is a story that unfortunately brings a lot of challenging histories out to the fore and to be interpreted and to learn from.
I mean, you really have a lot in that area to interpret, right? This, the original people who were there, you've got continuing archaeological sites happening in your park and in the area. Then you have whole civil rights, the Gullah Geechee, then civil rights today. I mean, you really run the gamut. And then on top of it, all the biodiversity aspects of just information that you're telling all of your visitors. So really, it's quite an extensive area to have to interpret.
Well, it is, and I'll give you an example. I'm glad you brought that up because so there within the National Park Service, there are several national historic networks, and those networks really work hard to identify various locations, for their specific histories. And then when you look at those histories of those of African descent, there are three major ones that whose stories can all be told through their initiatives that they establish as far as, say, a legacy of an area. So I'll give you an example. I was actually able to just serve in a temporary detail, serving as the Southeast Regional Program Manager for the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. So with that, we're able to research freedom seeker stories within the preserve, and we've discovered many of them. And the park was actually just added to the network, this year. But then, for an example, let's just say maybe a local Gullah Geechee community. So those freedom seekers may very well have escaped from a plantation and then found their way to a nearby area. And we do know that in Nassau County, in Fernandina, during the Civil War, there were registration opportunities for these individuals to join the U.S. colored troops. So then after the war, these U.S. colored troops or USCT veterans then may have been responsible for founding some of these Afro-descendant or Gullah Geechee communities. And then, Song, just as you said, those communities had to, have a certain amount of resistance and resilience, to remain significant and remain communities throughout even the the Civil Rights era, and then through to today. So a community like Cosmo is still in existence. There are still Gullah Geechee descendants, and they love to celebrate their resilience through their cultural history.
Ed, you have worked at, you've worked in the greatest city in the world, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go Phils, go Birds. The importance of the work that you did there, and you were at the Independence National Historical Park, yes?
Yeah, that's right. Independence. Began my career.
Well, so the importance of the stories that are told there, I think, has changed over the years, right? Like the Park Service's focus on telling complete stories, doing the research to tell stories from all perspectives and to tell difficult histories. That has been on evidence in Philadelphia as much as anywhere else. And then, now the work that you're doing at Timucuan, right? Like there are difficult stories to tell, and there are, the importance of doing the research to make sure that all perspectives are represented. How have you met that challenge in your career of unearthing the stories that need to be told and making sure that they get out there?
Well, another great question. A lot of it comes from commitment from not only the team itself, but then also from the parks administration and the agency. And so then we've really been tasked to expand on the enabling legislations of many of the parks. So just as you said, when many of these parks were established, the stories around which they were established and their themes initially um, were not as anywhere near as inclusive in many cases as now the agency is demanding that parks be and the stories that they tell. So what we're doing, we're now able to, we've been given permission generally to go beyond and extend beyond the enabling legislations to really research and tell those lesser known or unknown stories. And just as you've said, one park can have many different stories of significant ethnic groups and their backgrounds, but their contributions to the history of the park. So they can't be ignored and they need to be included, especially when we're looking at America 250th commemoration events that have been coming up in the next few years and are already happening.
Ted, on a personal level, are there days where you're just like, I wish I could just interpret this fine art painting and then go home? I mean, it is difficult some days to continually have to engage with people and tell these difficult stories.
It is, but I think what works for me to keep me going is just my commitment to lifelong learning. And so not just about the sites that I interpret and those challenging stories, but about we all as Americans and for those visitors that come to learn. I mean, there are definitely some challenging interactions that can happen any and sometimes almost every day they can. But those challenges I think really help us all to become better people if we can really work to understand them together. I'll say this thing: what I think is key is providing opportunities for open and even sometimes candid conversations. And they may be very challenging, but there may be, in turn, great opportunities to continue to learn. So you hope that folks are willing to learn and have those conversations, however challenging they may be. And one other thing is, particularly with student groups that come through, because one of our challenges is really knowing what kind of foundations the students have, say, before visiting a Kingsley plantation. So I mean, we really work hard to partner with the teachers that will be bringing the students, so we understand what the foundations that these students have before coming to a site where these challenging stories have taken place. So it takes a lot of care too. So it needs to be a partnership with the students and those who are bringing these groups.
Ted, we're very excited that you're going to be speaking at the NAI National Conference this December. Can you give us a sneak peek at what you're going to be discussing with our participants at the conference?
Well, sure. I mean, luckily, through a funding program within the agency, we were able to bring two Afro-descendant groups together. One from Gullah Geechee group here from Darien, Georgia, the Gullah Geechee Ring Shouters, and then another group from Louisiana, Winsboro, Louisiana, known as the Winsboro Easter Rock Ensemble. These both groups Afro-descendant groups that have a tradition of movement and music, with rhythmic accompaniment, that they both claim that was born on the plantation. So again, with that history that I kind of explained with the Gullah Geechee, these are some of the traditions that these folks, continued to practice through enslavement, and that have passed down through their descendants. So we were able to bring them together in New Orleans to perform meet and perform for the first time ever. They've known about one another, but bringing kind of opportunities to have this kind of cross culturalization. These opportunities are really what the parks. One of the things that the Park Service is working to achieve. So again, to provide greater opportunities to expand understanding, of various cultures. So we'll be talking with our partners, including Heather Hodges from the Historic New Orleans Collection. I worked with the folks from New Orleans Jazz, NCTA, and several other partners. So we'll talk about what that was like and how that all went down.
Ted, you are so enthusiastic about your work. Did you always want to be an interpreter? How did you get into the
Uh,
field? How did you get into the profession?
I was always very interested in history, and I know our viewers can't, our listeners can't see this, but I'm showing it to you. This is a photo. It's tough to see here, but it's of myself at about 6 or 7 years old at the Liberty Bell. So I was very, as I said, even as a youngster, very interested in history. And so little did I know way back then, I won't say how far back, that I would end up working, beginning my Park Service career at the site that I visited as a tyke. And I was about as big as the knocker that's in. Um, but but yeah, it's just again lifelong learning about people, and then myself as well within that. Each of us gets, I think, a great opportunity by visiting these sites to learn about, not only the culture, greater culture of the country around us, the nation, but about ourselves and how we fit in there, and hopefully a better understanding to help to forge better relations. I think that's important to look for. So that's what I do.
It's interesting that you did that work in Philadelphia and that you were obviously a young person in Philadelphia as we're approaching America 250. When it comes to telling complete stories, America 250 means different things for different people. And certainly, on the Timucuan website, it says, 6,000 years of human, stories. I'm saying that from memory, so it's probably not a direct quote. But given that you worked in Philadelphia, you were at Independence, and now you're at a site that talks about, not 250 years of history, but 6,000 years of human history. What is the significance to you at Timucuan of America 250, and how do you incorporate the perspectives of the people for whom that is a commemoration and not a celebration?
Well, there are going to be groups for which, as you've just stated, it will be more of a commemoration. But I think just as the city itself has a very unique history, so it is. I think it'll be somewhat easier to extend what we interpret by looking at the larger history of the city itself. So those challenges. I'll put it this way: we're lucky to work with some partners that really look for opportunities for not only racial equality, and it says all kinds of ethnicities, but also racial healing and reconciliation. So I think that's one thing that our team here is really hoping to provide opportunities for visitors. So I can say that that's one of the things that we're mainly hoping to provide for visitors, and again to experience ourselves. That's going to enrich, you know, what what uh, what we can be as interpreters in the future. So I think this is going to be a real valuable learning experience in the next few years. And we'll learn a lot, but then we'll put our stories together to tell more inclusive stories and histories here within the preserve with our partners as well.
So Ted, not only do you work with, your local school groups and then obviously all the visitors and the tourism boards, but you partner with several different agencies, right? Florida has a lot of state parks, a lot of historical sites. How important are partnerships in the work that you do?
I mean, they're really essential, in helping us to reach our mission. Uh, uniquely here, this is such a large expanse, over 46,000 acres, but we have in holdings and properties that are owned by other conservation entities and partners, including the city of Jacksonville and Florida State Parks. And so we also work with a philanthropic partner, the Timucuan Parks Foundation. So that, and then other national park sites that are within the area. So again, working with all of those entities and many more that I haven't had a chance to name. I mean, we're able to really expand on our efforts to again become more holistic and inclusive in the interpretation, not only the interpretation of the resources here, but the enjoyment. So we really work hard to bring underserved audiences into the preserve, provide opportunities for them to enjoy maybe ways that they haven't had opportunity before. So I mean, those opportunities are just as valuable as the cultural histories. And then, as we've said, but they intertwine. One last thing I'd like to say is that great examples of working with a Gullah Geechee community here of Cosmo. So we have various throughout the year. We host several fishing clinics. We bring folks in, youth junior ranger anglers. We call them junior rangers. Come in, they learn the basics of fishing, ethical angling. But then we've added also a heritage component element where some of the Gullah Geechee community folks come in and they talk about their traditional crabbing, fishing, oyster shucking techniques. And that provides them with a unique platform to tell their own stories, not us, co-created opportunity. And then more folks can learn about, more ethnic groups and their experiences within the preserve. So that's invaluable.
Well, Ted, this is, really whet my appetite for getting to spend a little time with you again in Florida and to hear what you're going to be bringing to the NAI conference. Such a fascinating site that you interpret, and so amazing to bring the stories of the people and that beautiful natural area to the world and to so many visitors. Before we get out of here, Ted, where can people find the Timucuan Ecological and Historic Preserve in Florida online?
So the website is NPS, is the National Park Service, .gov/TIMU, as in Timucuan. So nps.gov/TIMU. And you can find information there about all of our sites and the resource here, and how dynamic it really is. So please come and visit. We don't. It's a fee-free park preserve, so we'll make sure folks know that. So please come and visit us.
Yeah, and it's just a short little car ride from Jacksonville International Airport. So if you have a little time at the conference, either going to or from the airport, stop by and go talk to Ted.
Salt marshes, coastal dunes, and hardwood hammocks. Ted, what's a hardwood hammock?
So it's just a kind of a general area that has some vegetation that's more forested. So there are various types of trees within that, but these are kind of grouped areas. When you think about the different habitats that are all there are 5 actually within the preserve. So they're maybe broken up. But we have the largest percentage is salt marsh, but we also have a habitat that is shell middens, and so this is it's culturally created by indigenous groups and the refuse they're having feasted on the oysters that were here. So that's very unique.
Very cool. And percentage-wise, we're expecting very few of our participants to be eaten by alligators when they visit the reserve.
As we normally say, they don't bother you if you don't bother them.
Amazing. Ted, thank you again for joining us. This time we've got the recording and we're going to post this. Thank you so much for taking the time. Can't wait to see you in Florida.
Thank you very much.
And
interpreters,
that's what's up.
that's what's up.
I think that was good.